At first glance, the nursing home's sunny days seemed like an ideal place for elderly people in need of care. Surrounded by greenery in a quiet suburb, it appeared as serene and safe as the residents living there. The white facade, well-kept flower beds with vibrant blooms, cozy benches for rest, all created an impression of warmth and care. But for Mary Watson, an elderly black woman who had come here at the request of her son, the reality turned out to be less welcoming. Mary Watson was a woman with a rich life experience. In her youth, she had fought for her rights and those of her family, facing hardships but never losing her dignity. Her son James, with whom she shared a special bond, was her pride. James Watson had grown up inspired by her resilience and moral principles, and had become a man with strong convictions. He was not just her son, he had become the governor of the state, known for his active stance on equality and justice, especially for those who, like his mother, faced biased treatment. Thanks to his efforts, Mary was placed in this nursing home, where she would be able to receive the care she needed. Yet there was one significant detail. James had no idea that behind the sunny days' pleasant exterior lay a very different atmosphere. From the very first day, Mary felt that she was not entirely welcome here. Arriving by taxi, she entered the lobby with slight apprehension, hoping she would be met with understanding. One of the staff members, a white man named John Beckett, was the first to approach her. He was young, physically strong, and had only been working there for a short time. John glanced at her briefly and immediately looked away, as if not wanting to linger on her any longer than necessary. In his actions and gaze there was something cold, as if he had already formed an opinion of her at first sight. When Mary asked him to help carry her suitcase to her room, John did not even bother to respond politely. With a heavy sigh, he took the suitcase and, without looking at her, tossed it into the corner of her new room, as though it were just another routine task he wanted to finish as quickly as possible. For Mary, this gesture felt insulting, but she kept her composure, thinking that perhaps he was just tired. Nonetheless, it was hard for her to shake the feeling that she was not being taken seriously. During her first days at Sunny Days, Mary continued to encounter the same attitude. John carried out his duties, but did so with obvious reluctance. Each time Mary asked him for help, whether it was to place a glass of water closer to her or to help straighten her blanket, he responded with coldness, as if each of her words irritated him. Her requests seemed to provoke either annoyed glances or short, abrupt replies. Mary began to notice that he behaved differently with other patients, most of whom were white. With them, John was more polite, even smiling and calling them by name. But when it came to her, Mary felt his attitude turn heavy and icy, as if he preferred not to acknowledge her presence. Mary was a perceptive woman. She did not need direct words to understand that John looked at her differently from others. She sensed a hidden disregard in his every gesture. In each cold look he directed her way. It saddened her to realize that her skin color and age might matter to him. John never said anything outright, but Mary could feel it in the tone of his voice, in the way he avoided longer conversations with her, and in the detached manner with which he fulfilled her requests, as though she were just a burden to him. She tried to maintain her dignity, but each day became increasingly painful. Mary knew that James had expected her to be surrounded by care and attention here, and she did not want to trouble him with complaints. She feared undermining his belief that he had made the right choice for her. But inside, disappointment and sadness were building. For all she wanted was basic respect. Mary tried to brush off her hurt, understanding that not everyone is ready to show kindness and respect. However, it became difficult for her to remain indifferent to such treatment when she saw how John interacted with other patients, supporting them and showing involvement. To her, it seemed that each of his gestures spoke silently. "You're not like the rest. You deserve less." She stood strong, trying to remain calm, though her heart was torn with incomprehension. In such moments, she recalled what her own mother had told her as a child. "There is strength in you, Mary. Don't let others decide your worth." And although she tried to hold on to this, each morning, looking into John's indifferent eyes, she felt her strength beginning to fade. A few days passed, and it became clear to Mary that John's attitude toward her was not merely a matter of fatigue or overwork. His cold indifference showed itself more and more each day, and Mary felt that his manner was becoming increasingly demonstrative. In his gaze and gestures, It was as if her presence annoyed him, as if he was performing his duties mechanically, eager to leave her room as quickly as possible. Every morning he entered her room with a curt, "Good morning," not bothering to look up, immediately getting down to business. John would dryly arrange her medications on the nightstand, never explaining what to take or when. It seemed he did this deliberately, as if to show that he wouldn't give her more attention than strictly necessary. Mary was a patient woman, but even her calm was tested when she faced such blatant indifference. When Mary once asked him to place a glass of water closer to her bed, John sighed in visible annoyance, shook his head, and reluctantly complied, muttering under his breath, "Can't you do that yourself?" Mary felt a sting of hurt but kept silent, hoping the situation would improve if she remained calm and restrained. But her patience was tested again and again, each time she needed help, and John responded as though her requests were nothing but a burden. Seeing how John treated other patients, Mary began noticing more details. Elderly white patients received, if not friendliness, at least respect. He spoke to them politely, sometimes even making small compliments, showing patience. But when it came to Mary, his behavior was almost automatic. He avoided eye contact, responded briefly and dryly, as though talking to her wearied him. Her requests for help, no matter how simple, seemed to provoke nothing but irritation in him. Mary began to suspect that there was more to his behavior than just displeasure with her requests. At times, she caught herself thinking that her age and skin color might play a role in his attitude. With each passing day, her confidence in this thought grew. She didn't want to believe that, at her age, she would have to face such treatment again, but her intuition told her that this was more than mere coincidence. One day, when Mary asked John to hand her a blanket, he sighed irritably again, and without looking at her, threw it her way, saying, "You could do that yourself. There are plenty of others who need help too." His words felt like a slap to Mary. She had no choice but to endure this indifference, and it seemed John did everything he could to remind her of this at every possible moment. She sat alone for a long time after he left, feeling the weight of his words. She understood that his attitude wasn't going to change. She tried to stifle her resentment, reminding herself of the values her son had instilled in her. He had always said that the most important thing was to maintain inner strength, and that respect for oneself begins from within. But it was hard for her to ignore the fact that John looked at her as if she were a second-class person, as if her requests and even her existence didn't deserve his attention. Sometimes Mary lay awake at night, thinking over his words and behavior. She lay in the darkness, remembering the hard moments in her life when she'd had to confront prejudice, each time reminding herself that her strength lay in her resilience and in her ability to keep her dignity intact. However, now, being dependent on someone whose duty it was to care for her, she felt vulnerable, as if her inner world were cracking under the weight of this unwanted indignity. One day, when John appeared in her room again, she tried to start a conversation to understand the source of his attitude. She asked him cautiously, gently, "Mr. Beckett, have you ever had to care for your loved ones?" She asked this question hoping to see a glimpse of sympathy in him, but John only shrugged, not even meeting her gaze, and replied, "My loved ones can take care of themselves. You probably could too. Nobody here has to run after everyone." His words struck Mary once again. This brief and harsh conversation left her feeling empty. She realized that the person before her could not see anything more in her than just another patient. His words and behavior confirmed what she had begun to suspect. To him, she was not on the same level as others. The thought was bitter and painful, but she decided she would not let herself lose her dignity. Every day she reminded herself that justice would find a way to reveal John's true face. She knew that truth has a way of surfacing, and her resilience and belief in fairness would be her shield. In her heart, a resolve was taking shape, and though she did not know how or when it would happen, she believed that sooner or later, her dignity would be restored. A few weeks after Mary moved into the Sunny Days nursing home, an unexpected and important visit took place. On a crisp autumn day, a tall man in a formal business suit entered the facility, accompanied by bodyguards and a group of journalists. This man immediately drew the attention of the entire staff and the residents. He walked with confidence, his face serious, and moved swiftly, as if driven by purpose and determination. Everyone who saw him soon understood that this was the state governor, James Watson, a man known for his principles of justice and unwavering commitment to equality. The staff in the lobby and hallways whispered among themselves, discussing why the governor had come to their facility. John Beckett, who also heard about the visit, grew tense, though he had yet to realize what had brought James to their nursing home. Soon enough, however, he learned the reason, and his heart sank with a sense of dread. The governor stated that he had come to visit his mother, Mary Watson. A wave of panic flashed through John's mind. He suddenly realized that the woman he had shown such indifference and restrained coldness toward was not just any patient, but the mother of the governor, a man widely respected for his principles. Barely containing his anxiety, John watched as the governor, accompanied by the administration and reporters who hadn't anticipated the significance of the visit, quickly made his way to her room. When James entered the room, Mary was sitting by the window, her face calm, her gaze fixed on the distance. She sensed her son's presence, and her face softened, breaking into a warm smile. James walked over to her, embracing her and holding her a little longer than usual, as if feeling the weariness and hurt she had endured without showing it. For Mary, it was both a relief and a joy. Her son was here, and she knew that now her pain and experiences would not remain in the shadows. James took a careful look around the room, his practiced eye quickly catching details that alarmed him. An empty glass sat on the nightstand. The room was untidy, the blanket was carelessly tossed aside, and the air seemed to carry an aura of neglect from which his mother had suffered. One look was enough for him to realize that she hadn't been receiving the care she deserved, that the compassion he'd hoped would be shown to his mother was missing here. When John appeared in the doorway, tension was evident on his face. He looked at the governor, and although he tried to appear calm, his expression betrayed fear and confusion. James regarded him with a cold and stern gaze. That look needed no words, and John immediately understood that excuses would be powerless against his judgment. "Could you explain to me how my mother is being cared for here?" James's voice was calm, yet it carried firmness and unmistakable displeasure. John attempted to justify himself, starting to mumble something about a lack of time and the many patients needing attention. But James interrupted him. "Every patient here deserves attention and respect," he said, his words clear and unwavering. "Regardless of who they are or where they come from, it is your duty to care for people with respect and compassion, not to treat them according to personal beliefs." John froze, realizing that every argument he tried only worsened his situation. Behind him were the nursing home staff, watching the exchange. Their faces showed disapproval, and John, feeling their condemning stares, lowered his head. He understood that his behavior had not gone unnoticed, and that there would be inevitable consequences for his actions. Mary, sitting beside her son, watched the scene silently. Her eyes were calm, yet they held deep satisfaction, knowing that justice had finally been served. She didn't need loud accusations or revenge. It was enough for her to see that her son, her strength and protector, had seen what she had gone through and had come to her defense. James assured Mary that he would take measures to ensure that such treatment would never happen to her again. At that moment, her heart was filled with gratitude and pride for the son she had raised, a strong, just man who wasn't afraid to stand up for those he loved. The day after the governor's visit, Sunny Days was no longer the same. James Watson had left the nursing home administration in a state of unease, and the consequences were swift. Management conducted an internal investigation, interviewing staff and patients to understand why the governor's mother, Mary Watson, had faced such treatment. It quickly emerged that John Beckett had repeatedly shown cold and dismissive behavior toward Mary and several other residents, especially those who did not fit his idea of important people. Nursing home staff confirmed that they had seen John ignore Mary's requests and even respond sharply when she needed basic help. Similar complaints began to come from other patients who had previously been hesitant to voice their dissatisfaction. With all this evidence in hand, management decided to terminate John's employment for inappropriate behavior and neglect of duty. Mary heard about John's dismissal and felt a sense of relief. It wasn't easy for her to see someone lose their job, but she understood that justice had to be restored. She bore no ill will toward John, but recognized that everyone must answer for their treatment of others, especially when the lives and comfort of vulnerable people are at stake. Deep down, Mary hoped this experience would serve as a lesson to John, helping him understand the importance of respect for every individual, regardless of their status or appearance. In response to what happened, James insisted that Sunny Days implement a series of changes. Management enhanced oversight of patient care quality and organized training sessions on ethics, professional conduct, and respect for each person, regardless of their background or personal characteristics. James personally promised his mother that nothing like this would ever happen again, neither to her nor to anyone else in this facility. Since then, the staff began treating the residents with greater attention and understanding. They knew that even the smallest sign of disregard would no longer go unnoticed. Mary Watson's story became a lesson and reminder for the entire team that every person deserves respect, especially in their later years, when care and kindness are particularly important. James continued to visit his mother regularly. Each of his visits was filled with warmth and respect, and now Mary felt truly protected. The staff treated her with genuine care, not only because she was the governor's mother, but because her strength and kindness had earned this respect. Mary became a symbol of resilience and dignity in the nursing home, and even those who initially viewed her indifferently now looked at her with admiration. Her story reminded everyone around her that a person's true worth is not determined by status, age, or appearance. Mary proved that calm assurance and a belief in justice could bring about profound change. She found the strength to keep her dignity, even when facing coldness and disregard, and ultimately this strength brought about change not only in her own fate, but also in the lives of those who lived and worked alongside her. Each day, her room seemed to fill with more light and warmth, as if the space around her had become a reflection of her inner wisdom and calm. Mary knew that by staying true to herself and her principles, she had reminded those around her of the importance of equality and mutual respect.